like to call the February 28th meeting of the Millcreek Township Board of Supervisors to order, and we'll begin with a pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, I'll call for public comment on agenda items other than those dealing with development or rezoning applications. Okay, hearing none, we have the minutes from February 14th. If there are no additions or corrections to those, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve the minutes of the February 14th meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Groh?
I vote yes.
Mr. Morgan?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. We have the bills dated 2/21 with the sewer revenue bills and bills from 2/28. If there are no additions or corrections to those, I'll entertain a motion.
I so move to approve the payment of the bills for this cycle.
I'll second.
Mr. Groh?
I vote yes.
Mr. Morgan?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next, we have consideration of a land development. This is a sketch plan, a land development sketch plan to show the concept of a 1,932 square foot building with associated parking and stormwater management facilities located at the northeast corner of West 12th Street and Fillmore Avenue in Tract 15. Mr. Morris.
At their meeting February 7th, the Planning Commission recommended nothing because they don't take action on a sketch plan, but they had two comments, and one was that the proposed driveway does not meet the requirements of the Public and Private Improvements Code. It is wider than the maximum 35 feet that is allowed, and it lacks the required 20-foot distance from the PT, the point of tangency of the pavement radius. The second is if the applicant wishes to retain the driveway as shown, they should ask for a modification, which the Commission would generally support if the applicant ensured there would be no obstructions placed in the sight line from West 12th Street. Now, in addition, as you notice on the Fillmore side, there is not the required 10-foot green strip shown, and that is because the Zoning Hearing Board, in an adjudication dated November 18th of 2016, allowed for a reduction in parking spaces from 13 to 9, 3 inside the building, 6 outside as shown on the sketch plan in front of you, as well as no green strip, 10 foot wide, on the Fillmore side.
Wait, run that by me one more time, Rick.
Okay.
As far as the parking spaces?
The
They're on another lot?
The ZHB ruled that 13 spaces are required, but they only have to have 9. 3 of those could be internal, inside the building, and 6 are outside as shown on the plan before you.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Right.
So there's a garage door of some sort that
Correct.
allows, okay.
With 3 vehicles inside.
Gotcha.
Yes. And the 10-foot green strip that we normally require on the Fillmore side as well as the 12th Street side is shown on the 12th Street side, but not the Fillmore side. And that was approved by the ZHB.
The Zoning Hearing Board approved removal of the green strip?
Correct. And I didn't know that until later, after I'd spoken to you, John.
All right, is there someone here to speak on behalf of this sketch plan?
Good evening, I'm Matt Swanson, Raybell Surveying and Engineering, 10560 Walnut Street, Albion. Yeah, as Mr. Morris stated, there were various variances granted. I think there was also a variance granted for the 35-foot access. I think there was a variance granted so that it's now allowed to be 7 feet.
You don't see that, Rick?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. It shows that the plans and materials submitted by the applicant identify a 70-foot frontage. The way it's worded, it wasn't clear to me that that was approved. Yes.
So the Zoning Hearing Board has already granted variance regarding the parking, the green strip, and the width of the driveway.
Correct.
Okay?
Mr. Morris, is the driveway, is that part of the zoning code or is that part of the saldo?
I thought it was part of the Saldo.
'Cause they might not have jurisdiction to have granted a
That's
variance
what I was
on that.
wondering. I don't know, sometimes there's an overlap there where they're covered in both.
So that it would be, well, we'll have to confirm that then, Rick, because otherwise we're going to have to take action on that when this comes before us.
That's correct.
Whether we would permit a modification for the driveway. The whole issue here, from what I understand, Rick, is the fact that this used to be a restaurant that unfortunately burned to the ground. It's a relatively small, not relatively, it's a small lot. Difficult to redevelop now with our requirements as far as stormwater and green space and
That is
sidewalks.
correct. As a matter of fact, the zoning hearing board in their discussion in the adjudication stated that they find the relatively small size of the subject lot makes it impractical to develop the property in a commercially useful manner in full conformity with the ordinance. We find the applicant's proposal to be relatively unobtrusive and minimal variation from the literal terms of the ordinance.
So they, I'm not speaking for the zoning hearing board, but they were satisfied that there was a hardship.
Correct.
Okay. Any comments, John, in regard to the sketch plan? Again, folks, we do not vote on a sketch plan. This is only submittal to get comments from the planning commission and from the supervisors. There will still be a land development plan that will have to be submitted to both.
And that's what we're hoping for, is just your recommendation to
Right.
move forward to final.
Anything?
Well, the only comment I have is more of a general observation to the zoning hearing board's comments of a hardship, and that lot lines aren't fixed in stone. To say something is a small lot and therefore is a hardship is not necessarily a locked in, set in stone hardship. You know, property can be acquired, lots can be sold and merged, so I just don't necessarily agree with that argument from the zoning hearing board in general. And for this specific lot, I'm curious, you're proposing your stormwater retention to be really at the front of the property along West 12th Street frontage. I'm curious, was there a rationale for not positioning the building more towards the public right-of-way and have the pond on the
I believe
in the
we're
interior of the?
I believe we're pretty tight with the front setbacks. I believe they're both 30 feet.
Okay.
So I think we have 30 point something from West 12th Street and maybe
Yeah,
31
30 and a half.
31 from Fillmore.
Okay.
So that's the only area left over.
Anything else?
Mr. McGrath, if I could add, during the discussion with the Planning Commission, the issue the question was with respect to how close the driveway was to the corner, and that's what led ultimately to their suggestion of not having any type of sign or other obstruction that would, interfere with someone coming along 12th Street, making the right-hand turn from seeing that, there's a car or vehicle pulling out or something along those lines. So that was the thought process over the ensuring that no obstructions were placed in the sight line.
Because that first space is relatively close to the corner.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, if we went with the public and private improvement code, I think we'd end up losing probably at least 2 spaces. And we can delineate a line on the final plan somewhere where no obstructions would be placed.
Are there any discussions with the neighboring property owners for easements for utilizing their parking area?
No, I have not been. I know there is a garage door on the existing building, not far from, well, actually on the neighboring property. So vehicles have to get in and out, so we can't put much parking in the northeast corner of the property. Yeah, up there.
Okay.
Correct.
Because the neighbor to the east has a garage door?
They have a garage there.
Okay. Anything else?
Just a tough piece of land to develop on, so it's going to take creativity and some relief, it appears, which some of it's granted already, so.
Yes.
Yeah. We'll see.
Mr. Morris, do you have any concern about the site distance of, frankly, of the parking and drive access being so close to the intersection?
Sure, sure I do. It is not typical, but you know, I have to agree with Mr. Groh in that if this is going to be developed this way, we're going to have to provide some assistance in some manner and provide variances. You know, there are maybe some other things that could be done, but it's a tight piece. There just isn't a whole lot of room there. The entire lot measures 80 by 82, I believe. Or 82 by 88. It's small.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have a referral to the Planning Commission of a petition requesting a change in zoning classification. This is for West Ridge Apartments for the property located at 5208 West Ridge Road, now zoned C4 Regional Commercial District, asking for a change of classification to R4 High Density Residential District. Is there a motion to refer this to the Planning Commission?
Yeah, I'll move to refer that request to the Planning Commission for their next meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Groh?
I vote yes.
Mr. Morgan?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next, we have the announcement of bids and quotations received. This is for the 2017 aggregates, the materials that we would be using for our street maintenance in the coming season. We opened these on February 23rd. The first item was for 6,000 tons of Type A crushed aggregate, 1B limestone. We received a bid from Allegheny Mineral for $16 per ton. From Carmuse Lime and Stone, $22.24 per ton. 2,000 tons of Type A crushed aggregate, 2B limestone. Allegheny Mineral, $14 per ton. Carmuse, $22.24 per ton. 6,000 tons of Type A crushed aggregate, number 9 limestone. Allegheny Mineral, $13 per ton. Carmuse, $21.74 per ton. We received bids on asphalt sand for 14,000 tons of asphalt sand, Type B, number 3. Fiesler Sand and Gravel, $4.75 per ton. Gertz Sand and Gravel, $4.50 per ton. And Troyer Sand and Gravel, $5.80 per ton, with one exception. Their absorption rate exceeded what was permitted by our specifications. Their absorption rate was at 2.45. Our specs stated that it would be 2.1. We won't be awarding any of those contracts tonight, because what we will be doing on March the 9th is opening bids for the hauling of this material. What we've been doing for many years now is putting the aggregates out for bid and then bidding the hauling separately once we find out the bidders who are interested in supplying the aggregates. We then combine the two totals, because a perfect example tonight would be Allegheny Mineral bidding $16 per ton versus Carmuse $22.24 for the 1B limestone. That's a significant difference, $6.24 per ton. But the Allegheny Mineral material may be coming from, it is coming from a greater distance. So when you add in the hauling expense, that number may be either much closer, or Carmuse may even be less expensive. So we will combine the two totals, the aggregate and the hauling, and then make an award in, what would it be, 2 weeks from today, Cheryl? Okay. The last item is for 1,250 tons of PG 6422. This is our petroleum asphalt cement that we use for the manufacturing of our asphalt. And the only bid that was received was from Russell Standard Corporation for $386.61 per ton, based on the February Zone 3 index from PennDOT. So for that, since we only received the one bid, I would move that the contract be awarded to Russell Standard for $386.61 per ton based on the February pricing.
I'll second that.
Mr. Crowe?
Yes.
Mr. Morgan?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next, we have an ordinance under review. This will be there will be a public hearing held on this at our next meeting on March 14th. This is for proposed ordinance 2017-5, the medical marijuana ordinance. This primarily encompasses the changes that we're going to have to approve to allow zoning for the both medical marijuana distributors and medical marijuana growing in Millcreek Township. So again, that public hearing will be held on March 14th, and that'll be a 9:30 meeting, right, Cheryl? 9:30 in the morning on Tuesday, March 14th. Next, we have a request for leave of absence. This is from Lieutenant Tim Beveridge. I'll read this quickly. I'm formally requesting a leave of absence while I run for office. The primary election this year is Tuesday, May 16th, 2017. I will be turning in my petitions to be on the ballot Tuesday, March 7th, 2017, and I've scheduled 23 vacation days starting Wednesday, March 8th, 2017. The vacation time will take me to Saturday, April 15th, 2017. I would then need a 30-day leave of absence from Sunday, April 16th through Monday, May 15th. I will have 3 vacation days left upon my return to work on Thursday, May 18th. Please contact me with any questions. I'll refer to our solicitor on this, but Mark, I believe the way our current standard operating procedure for the police department stands is that an officer wishing to run for office would have to utilize vacation and/or leave of absence in order to run for office once he or she has formally announced or handed in their petitions to be on the ballot. As you'll see, we're considering a change to that procedure, but as things stand right now, the officer is permitted to request a leave of absence prior to utilizing all of their vacation time. We are proposing a change to that, but Lieutenant Beveridge is requesting a leave of absence for 30 days after using 23 days vacation, which would still allow him 3 days of vacation when he returns, if he returns. The reason being, like I said, this has been in our police standard operating procedure for, well, probably for decades, a long time, primarily because the supervisors who initiated this did not want to even appear that there was any kind of a conflict, any kind of misrepresentation by the police officer running for office, possibly still in uniform, and didn't want to give any kind of appearance of impropriety. I know that, as an example, federal statute, the Hatch Act, does not allow federal employees to run for office. State policy does not allow many, if not most, state employees to run for office or even to become involved in any kind of a political campaign. Also, just to avoid the appearance of impropriety. No one is suggesting that any of our police officers have ever been involved in that, nor would they. We just do not want to, and has been the case in the past, former boards of supervisors do not want to even allow the public to think that there would be any kind of a conflict or any kind of impropriety by one of our police officers. That's why they are required to take a leave of absence if they want to run for any kind of political office. Comments, questions from the board in regard to Lieutenant Beveridge's request?
The only thing I'd add, Mr. Chairman, is Chief Height did provide a memo to the board a few weeks ago recommending approval of the leave and expressed that they do have coverage on the force and they do have a plan in place for the absence of Lieutenant Beveridge if we were to approve the leave of absence. So the chief recommends that we approve, or he's confident that the force will be able to absorb the responsibilities if we approve the leave.
Okay. And I see that in the memo that we received from our HR Director, Diane Lyons, she said that his request does meet the requirements of the current policy.
I think the only exception is that yes, the current policy, it meets the current policy.
Correct. There's an exception if the new policy were in effect.
Correct.
As of right this minute, it's not.
Correct.
I'd like to, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I'm just looking for a motion if we're going to approve the request for Lieutenant Beveridge's 30-day leave of absence.
Okay, I'll make the motion to approve his leave, although I don't think he needs one, but we'll talk about that in the next action. So,
That's coming.
That's coming,
Okay.
yes.
So
I'll
your
make
motion
a
is
motion to approve his
the
leave right
okay.
now, yeah.
Is there a second?
I'll second to approve his leave based on the current standard operating procedures of the police department.
Okay. Mr. Groh?
I vote yes.
Mr. Morgan?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Okay, next we have, as I referenced, Resolution 2017 R9. This is a resolution that was tabled from our previous township meeting, February 14th. This is a resolution adopting a political leave of absence policy applicable to certain Millcreek Township employees seeking elective political office. And that's a very brief description. I'll try to give a little bit more without reading the entire policy. Reader's Digest version, employees given discretionary authority to enforce laws and ordinances, like police officers, who wish to seek political office must submit a written notice to the Board of Supervisors prior to formally announcing such intention to the public or filing his or her nominating petition. Very similar to, if not identical to, our current policy. When the employee publicly announces candidacy or files his or her petition with the County Election Bureau, whichever comes first, he or she shall be deemed a candidate and shall be required to resign or request a leave of absence. Again, pretty much identical to our current policy. The difference being that employees will be required to exhaust all available paid leave they are eligible to take prior to any unpaid leave commencing. So as was the case tonight with Lieutenant Beveridge, he would still have a little bit of vacation, 3 days remaining. The new policy, the proposed policy, would require that employee to utilize all paid leave prior to granting of any leave of absence. This is an unpaid leave of absence, by the way. And the other change would be that it is applicable to any, let me find the wording here. Any employees who have similar discretionary authority to enforce the laws and ordinances. So it would not just be for police officers, because we do have other employees, zoning department, actually our dog catcher. Who else did we talk about?
Fire code officials.
Fire code officials.
And the
Recycling coordinator who can actually cite people for violating the recycling ordinances. So there are a limited number of other employees on top of the sworn police officers who would also fall under this new policy. We are not prohibiting anyone from running for office, but what we are, or what this policy would do, what this resolution would do, is require those employees who did wish to run for office, who have discretionary enforcement authority, to take a leave of absence and or utilize their paid vacation days. so that they would not be on duty. Discussion from the board. John, you wanted to touch on something?
Yeah, I got a couple of things I'd like to talk
All right.
about here. First of all, for the audience and for everybody here at the meeting, this, one of the provisions here says, number 2, when the employee publicly announces candidacy or files his or her petition with the county election bureau, whichever occurs first, he or she shall be deemed a candidate and shall be required to resign or request a leave of absence. Requesting a person to resign from their job so that they can seek political office. Okay? It doesn't have to be here. It's wherever they're at. We have an employee here in our fire codes department who lives in Lake City. What we're doing here is we're saying to this person, you cannot run for school board, auditor, now in other words, a township auditor, so that's the, if he lives outside of Girard, in Girard Township, that is, constable, district judge, or even the judge of elections at his voting district. That's what this policy is saying. That if you are seeking one of those political offices that you are elected to, you cannot do it. You must quit your job or use up all your vacation, whatever time you have left. Personally, I think that's wrong. I will give a couple examples of where I think it's wrong and why I do. This is a policy, not the law. Brian had mentioned the Hatch Act. He also mentioned about something about the state. This is a local policy. It's optional. It is a policy. It's not a law. We could not have this as a law because it contradicts what the Pennsylvania ethics law says. And that's very tight, what the ethics law is. It's very clear. You do something unethical as a candidate or as an office holder, you're subject to some action by that ethics commission. We're also talking about people, and here's why I'm saying, you may have to quit. Looking at the time, when you look at the primary, your date to get the petitions in is March 7th. So the cycle of time between March 8th and May 16th, which is the primary, is 69 days. That's calendar days, not work days, but 69 calendar days. And then, if you're successful in the primary, then you go from May 17th through November the 7th, which is an additional 175 calendar days. Didn't count the work days in there, but those are days. You could work 5-6 days a week, it depends. The point that I'm getting at here is that myself, as an example, but I won't talk about myself here in this. I'll talk about a friend of mine who is seeking office as a district judge in Warren County. He is the police chief with the city of Warren. The city of Warren does not require their employees, their police department, to take a leave. Okay? They obviously trust their people. I'm not saying that we don't, but certainly the policy here appears that we don't trust them.
The way
We trust
you just
them.
said that, though, that implied that.
Well, what I'm saying is this. We trust them as employees, but we don't trust them as candidates. That doesn't set well, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Further, let's talk about a fellow supervisor out in Harbor Creek Township, Joe Peck. He was a code official out there working for Harbor Creek Township when he sought to run for office. He did not have to take a leave at that time. The same thing goes for Nancy Augustine, who is a township supervisor in Summit Township. Lisa Valamont, Green Township, same thing. Myself, when I ran for office as a supervisor, I was employed by the Borough of Edinburgh as a building inspector. I had the authority to write citations, to file charges for any violations that were not corrected. I was not required to take a leave of absence. Also look at something that I know with some people like to make us so much like the county. The county itself, the county of Erie, does not have that requirement other than for those who work in the Elections Bureau. If they are seeking office, they must take a leave of absence. John Loomis is our sheriff. When he ran for office 4 years ago, he did not have to take a leave of absence. Him or Randy Boga, both of them were trying to run for sheriff. They both worked there as sheriff's deputies. Okay, of course, as we know, John Loomis won the election. He's up for re-election now. He doesn't have to take a leave. So this is where I'm having a problem here understanding why we have to do this when many other places don't have to do it. It's not a law, it's a policy. We have laws already in effect. It's called the Ethics Commission and the Ethics Law. It's very clear of how that is to be played out there. You do something wrong as a candidate, you're going to be in trouble. You do something wrong as a public official, you're going to be in trouble. No matter what, if you do something unethical, you're in trouble with the state. We talk about this as far as citations, the ability to write citations. How about the ability to do other things, to grant approvals on things that may not have to happen, or just do something a little faster for somebody? I'm a little perplexed. As you can tell, I'm against this whole policy. I know where you guys stand at it, but I just need to let everybody know here where I'm at on it. By no means is this grandstanding. I'm just saying there's a hypocrisy here. I have to wonder about ourselves as supervisors. Am I a candidate if I announce now that I plan to seek re-election? Does that mean that everything I do is because I'm a candidate? If I run for office again, I'm talking 2 more years, okay? Doesn't make me a candidate now. I'm still a supervisor doing my job. That's what I'm getting at here, folks. When do we draw the line on that? I don't see us being included in this right here. And talk about people that have power and authority to do things. See what I'm getting at? So, that's all I have to say. I've said my piece. Thank you.
John, you make good points. You make a good argument there.
I do.
Particularly when you started out by saying that someone who was running for school board or auditor or something, a position of perhaps, and I don't mean to demean school board or auditors.
Yeah, who would want to run for school board, you know?
Good point.
Just kidding.
Something of perhaps less authority compared to a district justice. A district justice makes very significant decisions, life-changing decisions on a daily basis. And for a police officer, and again, this is where I said I am not implying that any of our employees would ever do anything unethical, improper in any way. What I'm saying is I'm fearful that someone in the public could get that impression if, and I'll use the example that we have discussed in the past, a police officer pulls someone over who's running for supervisor or district justice or whatever, and has the ability to issue a ticket or not issue a ticket. I don't want that person who was pulled over to even remotely think that police officer's decision-making is any way influenced by the fact that he or she is running for office. So, like I say, this is a decades-old policy. The change that we are making is minor, I believe, in that we're saying that in the future that employee must must utilize all of their personal vacation time before asking for a leave of absence, and we are extending it beyond just police officers to anyone who has enforcement power. So it's a couple of what I believe are minor changes, and it just continues the policy that has been in effect in the township for, like I say, a long time.
I will state once again here that the policy, if I didn't say it before, the policy itself, I think, is bad. I think it's...
The existing one.
Yeah, the existing policy. I think that the best thing to do is just repeal that one altogether and just do away with it all and do away with this resolution here that we're talking about. It makes no sense. We have laws in place. We don't have them, the state has them, to keep an eye on all of us. And the threats of having an ethics commission investigation, I'll tell you, that would be enough to keep anybody on the straight and narrow there if they even had an inkling of doing something wrong.
Well, you did mention several examples of Harbor Creek and Summit and other municipalities that don't have this type of a policy.
Right.
But again, the state has something similar in that even the state's is even more restrictive because from what I understand, a state employee can't even be involved in a political campaign.
Right.
Can't go to a fundraiser, isn't supposed to put signs in their yard. Other than voting, they're not supposed to be involved at all involved.
In politics, yes.
In politics.
Right.
And that's not just for state police, that's for state employees. So, and that's not, I don't believe that's all state employees, that's a
Right.
restricted group
Right.
of state employees, but beyond state
Okay.
police.
But you seem, Brian, if I was understanding what you're saying, you were talking about the district judge level. I'm also looking at school board. The policy just says elective office. It doesn't pick out one office. School board. You know, school board here in Millcreek, school board in Girard, wherever it might be. Auditor for a township. Okay, now there might be a little bit of a problem if they were an auditor here in the township setting our pay. That would be a little bit
You
odd.
can't be.
That would be a problem.
You can't be a township employee.
You can't be a
and
township
an auditor.
employee, yes. That's true. That's already in the act, in the second-class township code. Constable. Say somebody is a part-time constable. Girard. I'll just use Girard. I'll keep on using Girard as an example. District judge, okay? Judge of elections. They have what, maybe a 3-day job, maybe, if that. I'm not, please, if I'm wrong on that there, I correct myself. But the fact is, these are elected offices to one degree or another. And we're not differentiating in this here. We're just saying they're all the same. And that somehow, as I said, we trust them as employees, but we don't trust them as candidates. That says a bad thing about us, too, as supervisors. We are elected officials here. What are we saying to the public about ourselves? That's troublesome to me. So, I don't know what else I can say. I know what you guys are going to do, and you know where I'm going to go with it. So, that's about all I'm going to say on it there.
Okay.
So, call for the vote. Or
I'll
call
do
for a
that.
motion, or whatever.
Is there a motion regarding Resolution 2017-9?
I'll move to approve Resolution 2017-9.
I'll second that. Mr. Morgan?
I vote yes.
Mr. Grow?
No.
And I'll vote yes. Next, we have Resolution 2017-R10. This is a resolution adopting the 2017 meeting schedule and location for the Millcreek Township Fire and Emergency Services Commission. John, I'm going to refer to you on this one since this is...
Yes, okay, since the
Liaison.
liaison to the Fire Commission. After some discussion and looking at the calendar for the availability of this meeting room, the Fire Commission, first of all, must meet in a public meeting room. It is a public meeting open to the sunshine, pursuant to the Sunshine Act. The date that it is available consistently every month is the third Thursday at 7 o'clock here in this meeting room. So this resolution 2017 R-10, it is setting the meeting schedule. So for this year, for the remainder of this year, except on March 14th, that is the exception to that. We do have a meeting schedule. That's a Tuesday, March 14th. The rest of them will be on the third Thursday, and the resolution passes, we can advertise those accordingly, if I'm correct.
Wait, run that by me again. You said that there's a conflict when?
This meeting on March the 14th, that is a Tuesday night. That's the only one that we have on a Tuesday.
So this will be, the Fire Commission will be meeting on Tuesday.
On that Tuesday, the rest
Instead
of
of
them
Thursday.
will be on the third Thursday. We'll advertise that accordingly, so.
Okay,
I make that as a form of a motion to approve that resolution.
okay. And Cheryl, will this be advertised then?
will be advertised in Thursday's paper.
Okay. That was a motion. Is there a
Yes.
second?
I'll second.
Mr. Morgan?
I vote yes.
Mr. Grow?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes.
Mr. Chairman, would you permit me a brief comment? I want to apologize to the audience and the folks possibly watching the recording of this. I didn't mean to appear disinterested in the debate you and Mr. Grow were having regarding the political activity policy. I just didn't really have much to add, but I'd like to explain to the public. Whenever we develop these kinds of internal policies, we do have executive sessions, and we note the executive sessions later on our meeting agenda, where the three supervisors do sit down with legal counsel and also the department heads affected. So in this case, we did meet with the police solicitor, also Chief Height, and our HR director, Diane Lyons, to discuss the policy. It was a previously established policy, and at that time, the discussion was about how the logic behind it was that employees that have discretionary enforcement power, at that time, only police were affected by the policy. And that discussion was, well, we have other employees that also have this kind of discretionary power. It makes sense for us to not just single out police officers, that any employee that has that kind of enforcement capability should have similar policies and procedures affecting them as well. Another caveat that we noticed in the existing policy was provisions and language that could possibly suggest that if an employee were to run for office and win election, we, as a policy, would be responsible for holding their position open during the length of their elected term of office because of the way it was worded. In those discussions, we spoke about expanding the policy to include all employees that have discretionary enforcement power, and cleaning up language so that, as Mr. McGrath explained earlier, an employee couldn't win election and then leave this position and expect the township to hold their position open until the term of office was completed. At no point in those discussions was it mentioned that we should eliminate the policy at all. So the board directed the staff to develop this resolution. So the reason I didn't participate in that discussion was that it's the first time it's been brought up that the policy should be eliminated. So I was unaware that the debate was going to occur this evening. I didn't really have anything to add because our staff had already made a recommendation as of their professional opinion. Our solicitor made his recommendation, and I didn't have anything to add other than that. So I apologize if I seem disinterested. I just feel we had discussions and the policy was sound, and I supported it.
Okay. Number 13, commission appointments. Property Maintenance, Fire Code Board of Appeals, we have 2 vacancies. I don't believe that we have any recommendations there.
Right, we have actually received, I think, 3 interested residents in the last couple of days. We have to go through those.
And that's either or, property maintenance or zoning hearing.
Yeah, one of the other there,
Okay,
yes.
so we don't have recommendations for tonight, but
Yeah.
we should have them
Hopefully
for the
next
next
month.
meeting.
Yep.
But we do, from what I understand, John, have a recommendation for the sewer authority.
Yes, and we have Steve Lewis, who is a lifelong Millcreek resident here. He's a building contractor, graduate of McDowell High School in 1978. He does a lot of major work or major construction, commercial construction, and he has expressed an interest in serving on the sewer authority to fill out the term that was left open when Dan Benzer resigned from the authority. So his term ends the December 31st of 2018. So I think you have his resume there from Steve. So I'm going to make a motion to appoint Steve Lewis to fill out the remainder of that term vacated by Dan Benzer.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Groh?
I vote yes.
Mr. Morgan?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Communications, Mark, regarding Penvest loan?
Yes, I actually have 2 things. The first one's the Penvest loan. I've been going through and reviewing some numbers at the end of the year. The outstanding balance on the Penvest loan is, as of March 1st, is going to be roughly $60,000. Between the sinking fund and the loan account, sinking fund at Erie Bank and the loan account at PNC Bank, we have about $170,500, which means we're $110,000 to the good. We're earning about 0.3% on the interest for the investments and paying 3%. So it only makes sense to pay this loan off now.
So the
And
money,
to do so, we have to request early payoff.
okay, and there are no penalties for the early
No
payoff?
penalties,
Okay.
but you do have to get the okay of Penvest, which is Pennsylvania Public Infrastructure.
Something like that,
Something
yeah.
like that.
We've had very few Penvest loans in the past, but this was one, I believe you said it was for the work that was done, excuse me, on Beaver Run?
Yes,
And the 2 accounts that you mentioned were money that was specifically set aside for that?
yes.
Okay.
And the reason, part of the reasons why we're significantly over the ending balance is over time, these accounts, they were making a lot more money on interest back in the day when
When they were first taken
put
out?
out, yeah. So over time, they've accumulated some interest.
And I
Not so
believe that
much
was a
today.
project probably from the mid-90s, I'm
Yeah,
guessing?
I'm pretty sure that's what it was.
So it's...
96,
It's a
97.
20-plus year loan, okay. All right, is there a motion in regard to the payoff of the Penvest loan?
I think it's a great idea. I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Mr. Grow?
I vote yes.
Mr. Morgan?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. And Mark, you want to hit the other one that's... you
Yes,
said that you had
also
two?
too, we've got a request to purchase a new postage meter for the office complex. This was budgeted, it's the only capital item in the administration capital budget for this year, and it is about $50 under, $46, I think, actually, under budget. So I request permission to sign the purchase agreement.
Okay.
Okay.
Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion to approve that.
There's a second?
I will second.
Mr. Grow?
Vote yes.
Mr. Morgan?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Is that it, Mark?
That's it.
John?
Okay, I got a couple things here. This comes from Police Chief Scott Height. I respectfully request the Township Board approve the following at the public meeting of today. Grant permission to hire one part-time police dispatch trainee at the starting rate of $11.33 an hour. Prior to being eligible for dispatch duties, PA code mandates a minimum of 136 hours of training. Members of our department provide the training internally. To provide background information about this, last year the board authorized the department to hire 4 trainees. Of the 4, 1 completed the required training and continued to work in a part-time capacity. That candidate was then selected to fill a full-time vacancy due to a retirement, while the other ended their employment. Thus, we are continuing to have only 4 part-time dispatchers in the police department. All 4 have full-time employment jobs outside of Millcreek Township. So I don't want to say we're in dire straits, but we would like to have at least an additional person to help fill in those gaps for part-time police dispatch. So I'll make that in form of a motion to get that ball rolling.
Mr. Grow, just so I'm clear, hiring your position doesn't necessarily increase the man hours we're paying out. It's just to give us an option for coverage in the event.
Yeah. It actually reduces overtime of keeping another dispatcher over when we don't have someone to fill in. So, yeah, there's quite a bit of savings on that there.
The only increase would be during training.
During training, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. We try to get them trained as quick as possible.
I'll move to approve the request.
All right, motion second.
Yes.
Mr. Grow?
I vote yes.
Mr. Morgan?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes.
I've got another one, and I've heard this, and I just want to get some guidance here. I think we need to take some action. I've been hearing something, and we need to get not investigation, but further research on it. It appears that, as many people know, we have what's called the 929 fire department here. It's an immediate response team made up of township employees that respond in addition to any of the volunteer fire companies for daytime activities, any emergencies such as a working fire, a car accident, or something of that nature, not alarms or anything like that, nor are they ambulance calls, anything that is more of a catastrophic incident. From my understanding, I don't know if this is accurate, the Kearsarge Fire Department has removed us from their dispatch as automatic. In other words, the fire departments have been, we automatically are dispatched at the same time they are. They have requested that we not be dispatched, and I hope I'm wrong on that. If I'm wrong, I do apologize to the folks at Kearsarge Fire Department, but we do need to get this checked in. So I want to have Matt Exley, our fire code official, to check out this a little bit more and report back to us. And then also, if there is any action needs to be taken, I think we need to discuss that in further detail. So I'm looking for some help here on this, just as a directive here that we can give to Matt. So.
Okay, and what we're looking for, well, okay, right now you want to just get some
I just want
facts.
to get some facts together
Okay.
here before we take any action. But I think it may lead to, if this is true, we need to take some further action on top of that.
Okay, and just so the folks know, John mentioned our 929 team is made up of township employees. When they do respond to a scene, any kind of an incident, they have no authority. all right?
Yeah, we're there to help.
The
That's what we're there
responding
for.
fire department are still in charge. The 929 team is merely there to supplement, perhaps to improve the response time.
Right.
We could have a guy from the streets department could be in the pickup truck, right, and that's happened.
Yeah.
It has happened.
Or even me.
Or you, could be right around the corner and be able to respond immediately because they would be made aware of the incident. And it's just a way to
Well, to
improve the service.
Yeah, to enhance the daytime coverage, and that's where it seems to be our biggest problem in the township, is daytime coverage of the fire departments. Nighttime's not so bad, daytime's a problem, so that's why 929 was formed.
I don't know whether you need any specific
I just want-
authority, but
Okay.
if you would like to pursue that, I don't think
Okay.
that there's any
Then I
objection.
just wanted to bring it up there then, so. Okay,
Get some details for the board.
I will do that, thank you.
Okay.
Well, gentlemen, I do, this memo from Matt, actually, it appears he has investigated it regarding 929 being dispatched in the Kearsarge district. He has spoken with the 911 center from the county. I do believe we should at least, I'll make a motion that the board direct and give authority to Matt Exley to contact the 911 center to ensure that the 929 team that their responsibilities are restored, and to inform the county that those responsibilities are not to be removed unless notification comes from the township.
Okay, so if we get confirmation that that is in fact, and I know that Matt said that he has had conversations, if we get confirmation that that is in fact the case,
Yeah.
then do we want to take that next step right now?
Well, isn't that kind of what I said there, or am I mistaken? of
Well,
what
you
I
didn't
said? Okay.
recommend any action just yet.
Okay, well, then
I think
maybe
that
I should
John
modify it then, if
Is
that's the
recommending
case.
that we actually go to that next step.
Right.
If we get confirmation, do we make the move now?
Well, yeah, I think also, Mark, back me up on this. If I'm wrong, let me know. Does this take a resolution to formally say to the county, we are secondary and will automatically be dispatched during the day on certain calls with all Millcreek fire departments?
In terms of what Matt needs to do, I think the concept was that he would come up with a plan that I think he would then present it to the supervisors at the next meeting,
Okay.
which would then be adopted and approved to give him, to then send to the county, here's I think the county needs something from the supervisors and the township identifying what the requirements are. And so I think that was his intent in trying to bring something to the supervisors at this meeting and to get kind of their approval to move forward, to put together what he needs to do in terms of getting a plan together that the supervisors would approve.
Well, Matt is recommending to develop a procedure. I suppose that would then have to be brought back to the board.
Correct. I think
Okay.
his intent was to bring that back to the board at the next meeting.
Okay, then let's back up. Rather than just making a recommendation, John, do you want to make the motion to direct Matt to draft something?
If that's what it takes to get this going, yes.
Okay. Okay, that's a motion. John?
Well, I guess my motion died without a second. I did make a
It
motion.
melded into something here.
My only concern, gentlemen, is that if we wait for 2 weeks, in those 2 weeks, our 929 team will not be dispatched for the roughly half a dozen different kinds of incidents that they've previously been dispatched to in the Kearsarge district. I think that's two. We have the resources available in the township to respond very quickly to emergency situations in the Kearsarge district
Yes.
for reasons that I'm not quite sure of. That response team has not been dispatched to those incidences. I don't see a reason for us to wait 2 weeks to simply pass a resolution to direct Matt to contact the 911 center to let them know that those previous responsibilities should be reinstated. In the meantime, until Matt creates this overall township policy.
So you're saying, don't wait for a policy, do it now?
But I think if I can
I'm saying,
kind of
there's two steps to this, Mr. McGrath. There's two steps. Immediately, we have a gap in coverage in Kearsarge compared to the rest of the township. Because apparently the Kearsarge Fire Department unilaterally decided to no longer utilize the 929 team services, which frankly, I'm very surprised that they have the authority to do that. And we should act as a board to inform the 911 center that if we have emergency responders available when there is a public safety emergency, that none of the volunteer fire departments should be able to unilaterally decide that that response team will not be dispatched. So I believe we need a resolution to notify the 911 center to reinstate those dispatch procedures that were already in place until at some point they were removed. In addition to that, Mr. Exley should devise, I believe what's called a pre-plan, as a township-wide policy, and coordinate our fire departments in these response plans. But I believe that we have two separate issues. There's a long-term plan that I agree with Mr. Groh needs to be developed, and I have the full confidence in Mr. Exley to develop such a plan. But there's also an immediate need right now of a gap in coverage for one section of Millcreek that I believe deserves equal coverage to every other district in Millcreek. And to reinstate that requires a resolution of this board informing the County 911 Center to reinstate their responsibilities. And that's the motion that I'm making right now.
Okay, pre-plans are done by the fire departments. I don't think that we have a pre-plan for 929.
Yes,
Am I
we
correct?
do. Yes, we do.
Oh, we do have one?
Yeah, we do have one.
Okay.
Yeah. What I can say about this is that, of course, we have radios. You guys unfortunately hear my radio. I try to keep it down in my office there, but when there is a call coming out there, our ears are to the radio and listen to, what is the type of call. Because, then we have our phone pagers that let us know that we're being dispatched under the I Am Responding app on our phones. Many times we're out the door before that even happens, before we get it on our cell phones. You hear it on the radio, you say, okay, car accident, motor vehicle accident, in Kearsarge. We're already out the door before we're dispatched, and even though that the Kearsarge Fire Department may have taken this action, then we're still on our way out to it.
Mr. Groh, Matt Exley informed us last week that his office was unaware of a fatal car accident last week.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So whatever argument you're trying to make right now, I do not believe holds water.
No, I think that the argument, maybe you missed it, but I think that your argument is backing up your argument. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's where I'm going there. Let's not bring out personal grudges here, but
Well, then
let's
second the
call
motion, John.
Well, okay. Let's second and let's move on there, for God's sakes, yeah.
Okay,
Whatever.
we're
it
going to
takes.
back up
Let's-
because we've had two other previous motions.
Yeah.
The other motions are withdrawn. We
Let's
have a
just get
motion
this
now
public
to-
safety thing taken care of once and for all, okay? Just once and for all.
The resolution being to contact the 911 center and let them know that the 929 team is to be dispatched for the limited amount, but there are certain calls that they will be dispatched automatically.
When our meeting is done, I will send an email up there to John Grappy, the director of the 911 center, telling him that very same thing.
Okay.
And carbon copying everybody on it that needs to know.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Yeah.
Mr. Groh,
Yes.
Mr. Morgan,
I vote yes.
and I vote yes. Anything else, John?
No.
That's it? The only thing that I have is,
Mr. Morgan said there's a second part to this motion.
No, I said there was a second issue on the table, which would be the long-term plan that Mr. Groh rightfully is recommending.
Just a complication.
okay. We have from Ashley Marsteller, our Director of Parks and Recreation, a very extensive list for our winter season classes, and this is available in either the administrative or the Parks and Rec Department, if anyone would like to take a look at it. But I will make a motion to approve the part-time help list as presented by Ashley Marsteller.
I'll second that.
Mr. Grove?
Yes.
Mr. Morgan?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. That's, well, I do have the one from Jessica James Stutzman in regard to the need to have a form, that's an agreement entered into between the township. Actually, it's more just a certification that the township has liability insurance. Jessica is going to be presenting at the Millcreek Mall, what they call Widget Wednesday, on June 7th, and the mall requires a proof of liability and property insurance, and Jessica would like permission to have that certification signed, and I would move approval of that.
Mr. McGrath, I think
Yes.
it's also the authority to execute the license agreement that the mall requires to participate in that event.
There's a licensing agreement?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a standard agreement, I think, that's been
It's been
entered into
same one that we've
in the
done in the
past.
past.
Yes.
Okay. I'll move approval.
I'll second that.
Mr. Grove?
I'll vote yes.
Mr. Morgan?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. That's all I have. John?
We have a request from Diane Lyons, our HR manager, and also Township Engineer Rick Morris for a new hire. This is to fill a vacant position in the engineering department for an inspector. Recommended hire is Robert P. Donikowski at a rate of $17.99 per hour, which is the starting rate per the collective bargaining agreement. Mr. Donikowski was most recently employed by Shivers Construction as an operations manager and previously held positions of heavy equipment operator and laborer. And Mr. Donikowski has a construction management certification and a Class A CDL. This offer is contingent upon the successful completion of his pre-employment screenings, which are currently in progress. I would move that we approve the hire of Mr. Robert Donikowski as engineering inspector.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Mr. Grove?
I'll vote yes.
Mr. Morgan?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Anything else, John?
I have one more.
Yeah, this, you want to do that? Go
Yeah, it
ahead.
doesn't matter, okay.
Go ahead.
I have a request here for any of the three of us supervisors or any township employees that may be interested. ECATO, the Erie County Association of Township Officials, which we are members of, has an annual school that has specialized training on 4 different nights during the month of March. They're Thursday nights. The first one coming up is next week, March the 2nd. Oh, I'm getting ahead of myself. NIMS training, National Incident Management System training. This is G402, which meets the requirement for all elected officials. If you do not have a FEMA SID number, please contact one prior to getting the class. I plan on going. I'm already certified as NIMS, but I like to keep up to date on that. I highly recommend it to any elected official that may be in that situation. So I plan on going, asking for permission. Costs $10.
Yeah, all the classes are $10 per person.
Yeah.
John, if you just want to make that a blanket motion so that.
Yeah, for all of them, yeah,
All right.
anybody who wants to go for any of the classes coming up.
All right. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Grove?
Vote yes.
Mr. Morgan?
I vote yes.
I vote yes. Is that it, John?
I have.
You're done?
That's all I have.
Mark? Anything?
No, I don't have anything.
Cheryl? Mr. Morris?
Yeah, we did have executive sessions.
Okay, I will touch on that since our student ambassador is not here. The township supervisors met, as Mr. Morgan alluded to earlier. We did meet on February 16th and again on February 24th in executive session with our solicitor, primarily to discuss legal matters. And each meeting was about 2 hours. There's, pardon?
2 hours will never get back.
Yeah.
You know?
Citizens to be heard.
My name is Gary Bear, out of Filer Drive. I've been coming to these meetings for a number of years.
Long time, yeah.
And I think you guys have shown that this is really good participation. And the study commission was right, that it's better than having a manager and a bunch of others. Thank you for the debate. I know there's difference of opinion, but it works. You can see, class, it works. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Thanks, Gary.
You can pick up your check out front.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
I'd like to make a comment, Mr. Chairman. I do want to apologize to the audience and to Mr. Grow. Obviously, I lost my temper a bit this evening. I do apologize for that. It was inappropriate, it was out of order. And it's not anything personal, Mr. Grow. I just, this public safety issue, this fire commission issue, really is very important to the township, and I let it get the best of me, and I do apologize for being a little aggressive this evening.
It is it's a difficult issue, and we hope that the fire commission, recently formed fire commission, will give some direction to not only the volunteer firefighters who do an outstanding, amazing job, but also to the Board of Supervisors, because we can always use the help. If there's nothing else, I entertain a motion to adjourn at 8:08, I'm sorry, 8:08.
So moved.
We're adjourned.
You're watching the Millcreek Government Channel, powered by WQLN Public Media.